Hello, everyone, and welcome to the BBA Show, episode 10. This is Adam Wyatt, also known as AKW Analytics, and I'm here with Rich, as always. How you doing today, Rich?
I'm doing great, Adam. Had a nice weekend and a nice Memorial Day weekend and nice Bitcoin price action over the weekend.
That's right. It was, long weekend for those of us here in the U.S. With Memorial Day. Shout out to all the vets. I'm actually a U.S. Air Force vet, so good on
I
you
didn't
guys.
realize that. That's awesome.
Yeah. And Bitcoin rallied. So yeah, it was a good weekend. It was pretty busy, but all in all, you can't complain about close to $100 move in a week.
That's incredible. That's why I love Bitcoin, man. There's so much money to be made with the volatility.
It is, and I know you've been watching some videos. Inner Circle Trader. I mean, I know a lot of Bitcoin people know him too, and there's a kind of a classic thing in technical analysis of range contraction and range expansion, and Bitcoin really exhibits these qualities almost more than any other market. You get these really super tight ranges, and everything's squeezing, and the bands are coming together, and then boom, everything just explodes, and the ranges start blowing up, and it's you can see it clearly on this hourly chart right here. I mean, it was completely flat. We were looking at, $10 moves were huge back here, and then when the range started expanding, boy, it gets hairy.
Yeah, it's not crypto if you're not making like 30% on moves. You know what I mean?
Right. And so, people are going, in fact, I had my dad text me and shot me an email over the weekend. Is this a head fake? Is this for real? Should I sell some coins and try to get back in lower? And, of course, there's always trades to be had, and buying the top at 570 is probably not a great idea. But, I just said essentially stay long. I think the fundamentals are supportive. Obviously, the halving, we've been talking about that for a long time. Lots of core scaling stuff that's been really impressive recently. Smart contracts on Bitcoin, compete with Ethereum and Lisk and the other newer coins. Just the amount of development and apps and stuff that I see coming out now is accelerating. So I think fundamentally everything looks good.
Yeah, I agree. I was loving that. Ethereum, before this move, Ethereum was getting so much love. Like, oh, it was just going to be the next, Bitcoin was just going to have to take a back seat. All this just nonsense.
Coinbase started doing it. Yeah.
God, what a hypocrite too, by the way. Brian Armstrong, I think. Is that his name, Brian Armstrong?
Well, he's the CEO, but Fred Ursum is the one who wrote the article.
Right. I was going to talk about how I actually didn't read the article because I just don't care.
Good.
But Brian Armstrong tweeted something about, shifting away from Bitcoin because, Ethereum was like, it is the next big thing. But only a year ago was he tweeting about how nothing else matters. All altcoins are just distractions, and we need to focus solely on Bitcoin. So it just blows my mind. I mean, when there's money to be made, people lose their integrity. So I guess it makes sense. But
I think a lot of people get bitten by this altcoin bug. I mean, this is not something that's new, really. We've seen this in Bitcoin for years and years. People will be strict, maximalist, Bitcoin only. We got to use Bitcoin for everything. And then, one of these altcoins will tickle their fancy a little bit, so to speak. And they go, boy, this is it. This is the next big thing. It's going to supplant Bitcoin when, a lot of these things are kind of more impressive than Bitcoin from a technological standpoint, but you got to keep in mind this is more about money and economics than it is about technology. So I think if you keep that in mind, it's easier to stay focused on the one that's most likely to succeed, which is Bitcoin. We like altcoins here too, and especially speculating them because, like you say, the returns are insane on some of these things. But as far as a global currency standard, I mean, it's pretty much Bitcoin or nothing at this point. So, I get that Coinbase, the company, needs to make money, and they saw an opportunity to make money with Ether trading. But in my opinion, I think that their move to add it was the top, for the foreseeable future.
That's spot on. That's exactly what I was thinking too. Like about the time that they added it, I think we had a little more price action up in Ethereum, and then it just dropped, and Bitcoin just shot through the roof.
That's right. And it was right around the Dow was, I think, so we had the Dow thing going on, which we'll talk a little bit more about. which was driving Ether prices much higher. And then yeah, kind of that ended. Coinbase released it. There was tons of hype. It was over 0.03, well over $10 again, and blue skies above. And then yeah, I think that's the top.
Yeah. I don't know. I have a sense of just maybe I'm just a bad person or something, but I love it. I love it when I keep hearing all this this stuff about how Bitcoin should take a backseat, and then it just rips and everything else just dumps, and especially Ethereum. I don't know why. I just get like sort of a sick satisfaction out of it.
A lot of people do, and I mean that's I think that makes sense as far as being a human, because this is a competition, really. Yeah. I mean, we are competing for capital in these two markets now, and and it actually it can be quite confusing to try to figure it out. So anyway, I think Bitcoin's fine.
Most definitely.
But I also think that we'll continue to see waves of these altcoin bubbles, which if our listeners should keep in mind that. And this is not an endorsement to go ahead and speculate in all these markets, but if you are following the altcoin markets and you are prone to trade, that is a way to increase Bitcoin holdings. So the whole ecosystem, I think it's all good for the ecosystem. The more I tweeted this the other, the more people that get into whether it's Ether or Lisk or DAO or whatever it is, the more you realize Bitcoin is the reserve crypto. It just is. Like none of this really works without Bitcoin.
Yeah, absolutely. And did you happen to see the chart going around on Twitter? And I think Tour Demester shared it, and I saw a few other people, where upon the initial launch of these altcoins, they get really hype from the public. The price shoots up. It takes a big chunk of market share, a big percentage of the market share from Bitcoin, and then that's the top, and then it pulls back. And now it'll go to maybe 1% or less than 1% the market share that Bitcoin has. And we see this repeated over and over, from BitShares to Litecoin to, now, I think Ethereum is the next victim. I think it just is going to keep happening over and over again. And finally, I think that loop will get smaller and smaller until people just stop, throwing their money at wasteful products.
Yeah, essentially it'll be like a boy who cried wolf thing kind of thing. Enough people over time will lose money on these projects that don't generate anything, and then people will stop putting hundreds of millions of dollars into these offerings that really don't do anything.
Yeah, and literally
or don't promise to do anything.
It's so crazy. Maybe you want to talk about DAO now, because like you mentioned, hundreds of millions of dollars. Didn't we hit 100 million or even more?
Yeah, more. I think the total, when it was all said and done, it was about 140 million that they had raised. But that was after a pullback. So if you had taken, the market price of all, or the price of the total of all the Ether they collected, times the high of Ether during that rally, I think it would have been close to 200 million. So the range was from 100 to 200 million kind of throughout the thing. But I think it ended up at about 140, which, I think is the biggest crowd sale fundraise kind of thing ever.
Yeah, I think that's right. Man, that is just insane.
It's insane because, I think a lot of people still don't even know what it is. So I bought, some of these things. I put half a Bitcoin or something in the ICO, and I didn't really know what I was buying. I knew that I was buying something that had a ton of hype, and everybody was talking about, and I kind of just wanted to be part of crypto history. I ended up flipping them already, by the way. I sold them above 25, which ended up being I don't know, not great, 20% gain off the ICO price or something like that.
Nothing big.
Yeah, nothing big, but I think that, this is a good example of when something gets too big, when this thing was so well known, everybody was covering it at hundreds of millions of dollars. How much of a pop could we expect? Could we expect 10x? I mean, is this really a $1.4 billion venture? That's what the valuation would be if in that case. I don't think so. So
no way.
Yeah.
Not at all. Especially
large numbers does come into play.
Right. Especially when people most of the people throwing their money at it didn't even understand it, nor did they know what it was going to do and what service or market it was going to provide to. It really wasn't necessarily rational, but people saw the hype and they're like, well, I got to throw money at this thing because, I can make money off of it, So
Yeah, that's what I was thinking.
Right.
And I kind of get this proposal structure. Developers can submit these proposals to it, and then eventually they get voted on. But pretty much, I don't know, a lot of the proposals I've seen so far are proposals to fix kind of the original problems with the thing. So the proposals aren't revenue generating projects. These are just projects to kind of fix the things that are already wrong with it. So again, that doesn't make me feel great.
Yeah, it's I don't know, maybe this fits, but it seems like turtles all the way down. Like we're going to have proposals to fix our proposals because we need new proposals.
Exactly. Well, that's it. Right. Yeah. So, we're not trying to hate on anybody that's involved with this. More power to you. I hope it succeeds. It would be great for crypto.
Yeah, it'd be awesome. It would be such a really awesome monumental achievement.
Yeah, it really would.
And we talked about this last time too. Even the way this thing was funded, it could be revolutionary. It just may be too soon. I don't know, but it's fun to watch. It's really fun to watch it unfold.
It is. And so all this being said, I don't necessarily recommend people speculate in this coin specifically, just because it's just not moving that much. We have maybe a 20-30% move here from top to bottom, from bottom to top. A little end top coming in here. I mean, unless you have 100,000 coins, you're not going to make much off these little small moves. Whereas something like LISK, the LISK, which was an ICO from a couple weeks ago or maybe a month ago, that just started trading, and there was a whole thing about this YoBit IOUs. We can get into that if you want to, but so anyway, that opened. It had a terrible launch. I think people couldn't get their coins out or something like that.
I think we had a couple people in the Slack that still, maybe a week later, were having trouble, or a few days later, were having trouble getting their LISK out so they could trade.
Right, exactly. And so at this launch, this created all this bad publicity right away, and the price dropped to a tenth of the initial price it was on the exchange, and then it bounced back up to the highs, and then now it's back down another 50%. So if you want to trade something like that.
Yeah. I don't know, man. I stay away from stuff like that because you don't really know what's gonna happen, and unless I'm really on the ground watching it, I prefer to stay away from it just because I don't want to get burned really badly.
Yeah, especially these first couple weeks and months of these things trading, when there's nothing to value on because the projects are just getting started. Nobody's really achieved anything yet. It's all technical. So if you're confident trading technicals, you can trade these things. But it's quick trading, and you're right. It's very high risk. Anything can go wrong at any minute.
Right. And I prefer to stay near markets where there's fundamentals that come into play for the price discovery. That's mainly because I don't have as great of a handle on the technicals as someone, like you, who's a professional trader. So again, just to kind of reiterate what you're saying, it's very high risk, but if you know what you're doing, you can make a lot of money.
Yeah, absolutely. So just one more little kind of warning and thing about the ICO deal. The YoBit, I mentioned the YoBits. I think it's a Chinese exchange. I think it has to be. And and with the LISK ICO, so when the ICO, the actual fundraise, was done, between then and the time that the coins are actually released to the participants of the ICO, there's kind of a dead period where nothing really happened. Nobody knows what these things are worth. So this exchange YoBit with LISK decided to start trading these IOUs. Well, these things at one point traded 100x the ICO price. I mean, insanely inflated prices. And then after the coins actually got released to users and started trading for real, getting real prices on exchanges, the price went down 99%, 95% something insane like that. So just be careful out there, because there's a new one that's going to get a lot of hype called Waves. We've talked about this on the Slack some.
Yep, they're already trading on Yobits.
They're already doing it, right? And again, it's like 50 to 100x the ICO price. I mean, it's
so
absolute
nuts.
insanity. I mean, I don't know logistically how they're pulling this off, but obviously they're getting people to buy these fake tokens with a lot of money, and then they're just going in after they're released on the open market and buying them for a tenth or 100th of what they sold them at initially. So it's really interesting, almost like a huge short, but it's pretty fast on their side, on the exchange side. So it's fascinating, but just people out there, be careful. That those aren't real instruments. Those aren't real coins. That's not real prices. So just be careful of that kind of thing.
Oh, and when I think IOUs, I start thinking about Mt. Gox and that situation, and obviously Yobits probably has a very, very tiny market share, but of in terms of exchanges. But oh man, no, thank you.
Yeah. So anyway, it's exciting time in the ICO world for sure. I've dipped some toes in a couple of these things, just purely almost for fun, just to see what happens with them, to have a reason to follow.
Nice. Yeah. And how's that turned out for you? I mean, have you done all right, or did you get burned, or maybe you don't want to talk about it?
No, on every single one, I've made at least a little money. If you get in on the ICO early, usually they give bonuses. So if you're like an early participant, you get like a 25-50% bonus if you participate in the first couple days or first week of these things. Kind of incentive to get money in early.
Right.
And so that really lowers your basis. If you get in early on a big bonus, that lowers your basis considerably. So then once it does hit exchange, even if it's at like an average ICO price, you're still making some money. So I found that you can, usually if you're quick enough, you can get out at least preserving your capital. I haven't had a time now where one of these has gone completely to crap and I've lost a significant amount of money. Not yet. I mean, that will happen, but
it's bound to happen.
Yeah. But now that I say that.
Yeah, now that you said it, you jinxed it, and every one of them from now on out.
Yeah, exactly. Right. So yeah, we'll see with how the waves and Rise is another one that I participate in, just a little bit of coin, but we'll see how they go. They could be good speculation, but I'm not looking to hold it. Just FYI, these are things that I'm looking to get out at a good price. Yeah. Yeah,
it sounds like just pure trading. I mean, there's really there's no reason to hold right now. I mean, if they start releasing products or awesome roadmaps, maybe then you start accumulating. But
sure, prove it. Yeah, they gotta prove it.
Exactly. I'm just gonna make a little money off of these tokens trading, and that's it.
Yeah, absolutely. So anyway, that's I think that's good for crypto.
It's drawn a lot of attention for sure, especially at the same time Bitcoin surging. I saw a lot of articles circulating about the 21% move or something like that. People were taking notice, and yep, exactly. And at the same time, we've got these like the ICOs and the DAO and all that stuff. So it's really great publicity for this market.
It is, and actually, I think it's extra good because a lot of this hype has taken the attention off of the halving. So I think actually the market still hasn't really fully priced in this whole halving thing, just because it's been focused on these other things.
Yeah, I agree. And I'm in my opinion, this particular move in Bitcoin, I don't think had much to do with the halving. In my opinion, it had more to do with sort of macro events. And if you feel like you're ready, if you have anything else to add, I'm ready to talk about that a little bit. I've got some awesome stuff to look at here.
Yeah, let's do it. Let's get onto that, because I think the macro stuff does affect Bitcoin as well.
Yeah, and so especially China, and we're looking at, if we look at Chinese prices or the Chinese market, there's tons of volume there, and a lot of the move this past weekend, there was a big premium in China. What was that range, at the highest point? What was the range between the China exchanges and the U.S. exchanges? Do you know?
I think it was
or the other exchanges.
Yeah, so I think the spread between Huobi Spot CNY and Bitfinex USD was like $75 or $80 at the top.
Yeah, that's what I thought too. And that's a huge spread, which tells me okay, China, big time buyers. They're the ones moving this, obviously. So, a lot has been made to a lot of attention has been on the Fed hiking soon. They're a lot more hawkish these days, talking about raising rates in June.
Yeah, they have.
Right, and if they do that, I do think we see that the next move up in the dollar, and that's going to put a lot of pressure on CNY, which it actually came out that the People's Bank of China was asking the Fed to fill them in before they hike, so that they can be prepared to make a move in their currency.
Right.
Basically, yeah, exactly, and and the move would be in the opposite direction of the dollar. So
right.
I don't think it's any coincidence that shortly after that news came out is when we started seeing this price action. Especially in China, we had like a big surge, and then
I'm sorry, Ray. I'm seeing a screen share of my screen share.
Yeah, well, that's what I was actually pointing out on your.
Okay.
Yeah, so I can pull it up here, not a problem. So yeah, on the Chinese exchanges, it was about this time that the news came out that PBOC was looking for some news from the Fed before they hiked, and then we just saw a massive movement. And I do think it's a great way for people to preserve their wealth, especially if the yuan's going to move. So let's take a look at CNY. So we've had a pretty substantial move here over the past few days, especially in the month of May, from like these levels on up here. So we got into some resistance here around this this long-term resistance support line. There's been a lot of action in this area recently, and then some over here. So this is kind of where I'm looking at, a key level. So it looks like we've touched this 659, 660 area.
Mm-hmm.
And, I would say if we could get a pullback here and down into this, what I'd say is the OTE, there's a huge risk reward here for a move up to this level, this 683, 684 level. I mean, that's a big return. And, I don't know if any of our listeners like margin, but you could really make a lot of money there. But I would only, I'd play this if we can get down into here. Maybe a little pullback like a cup and handle, similar to how we had here. You see this rounded bottom, and then we had a pullback, and then I would have been a buyer in this area. And then look at that. They devalued overnight and just a shot. Now, the only thing, we were talking about this before the show, is that here there was no pullback. Once it passed this level, it was gone. So, I would even consider buying on a breakout of this level here, because this thing has, I think, a long way to go. And I do think it'll only stop here for momentarily, because there's a lot of room. There's a lot of room for this thing to just go clear up to here, without much resistance, especially if the PBOC stops intervening, which at some point they have to. I mean, there's no point in throwing all that money away that they have in reserves just to fight something that they can't fight off, if that makes sense.
Sure, absolutely. I totally agree. And from a technical perspective, that's right on. And we were talking about this too, how there's just the market structure is very bullish. When you get those rounded kind of rounded W, almost saucer looking bottoms, continuing to come in, that's just bullish market structure. That means that people are accumulating down in those support areas. So unless something insane happens from one of these central banks, I don't see why the yuan would stop here.
Yeah, and I agree. Although I said this last time, and then PBOC said, nope, you're wrong. And they really took this back down. We had this pullback here, but even still, there was this nice rounded accumulation, and now here we are again. So, it's tough to play. You can't really fight the big banks, and the central banks. You can't fight them. But I suspect at some point they stop fighting and they just let this thing go. But yeah, like you said, here's a bottom, nice round bottom, nice round bottom, nice round bottom, and here we are again. So if we can get a pullback into this green area, let's take it on up. If we have a clean break here, I'd say let's keep going. Yeah. I think it presents some good risk reward right there.
And just for Bitcoiners out there, if yuan does pull back, look for Bitcoin to kind of continue to consolidate here, maybe wash out a little bit below 500 just to test that the weak and strong hands in the market. Because again, like Rich said at the beginning, Bitcoin is pretty correlated with yuan right now. So, but if it does break out, if it just breaks straight up from here, boy, Bitcoin's gonna go.
I totally agree. I was just talking about this with my boss today. Like up until recently, Bitcoin has been relatively uncorrelated with the rest of the world markets. But it's only since the yuan has really started making moves, against the population there, that Bitcoin has started correlating itself negatively to the yuan. So I look for that to continue, especially with the macro events out there that are kind of swirling around.
Yeah, agreed.
And the biggest macro, I always talk about it. I'll never stop talking about it until I'm proven wrong. Well, let's look at the dollar. So you can see, I'll zoom out in a second. You can see how we came down here and we hit this 92 level right on the head, just like right on the dot.
Yeah, we were talking about that then, kind of when it was happening.
Yeah, exactly. Like we were waiting, like if this broke through, there's a good fall down. But we saw it snapped right back up, and look at this. This is just a weekly chart, and you can see all green candles. And I don't think this move is done. I think we could get a little pullback and then it keep, much like right here. You see there's like a little red candle, and then
just a tiny little like bull flag almost.
Yeah.
I think if you nail that down, probably like a 4-hour chart about the nice bull flag.
Yeah, let's see. I don't even know if I could spot it now, but but yeah. So I don't know what's happening in TradingView, but I'll go back to the daily.
Yeah, it's trying to catch up.
Yeah, I'm going too quick for it, but
so much data.
So do you want to talk about you were mentioning like this, you had some really neat stuff to say about this particular wick right here that came down, pulled down, and how this correlates, or how this is related to the market makers and how they find patches of liquidity. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, so it's actually happened on each one of those three lows. You can see each one is progressively slightly lower than the one previous to it.
Yeah.
And this all goes back to kind of liquidity theory and order block theory from ICT, Inner Circle Trader. If you haven't heard of him out there, go check him out. He's gives away some of the best instructional trading videos out there for free, and is a super knowledgeable guy about the markets. So go check him out there. But just kind of a synopsis of what he's talking about here is big institutions control price action in big liquid markets like this. And those institutions, in order to make executing orders worth it, they need to, they execute very large orders. And in order to get those orders filled efficiently and at the best price, they essentially need to go hunt retail liquidity. And so, what retail does is they see one of those lows, and they see price action and market structure starting to get bullish, and so they get long and they put their stop just around that low, and they go, okay, I'm gonna ride this thing to the upside. I'm gonna play a breakout. But if it comes back below this low, then that's it. I'm gonna get out. And so all those stop orders. So the market makers know that stop orders become market orders whenever the price is hit, and so you have all these people that are willing to sell right near these lows. And so institutional guys know that they can sell it down into those levels, trigger a bunch of those stops to be essentially market sell orders. They'll snatch up all those orders, buy up all that liquidity. And then essentially that creates a vacuum back to the upside because nobody's reinitiating longs at that point. Everybody just got stopped out. And so then it's really easy to rip back to the upside. So essentially especially when a market's ranging like this, market makers would just look for highs and lows and try to take people out at those highs and lows as much as possible. And so it's just really good to keep that in mind as a trader, that where you place your stop is one of the most important parts of the trade, because it's pretty much the market maker's job to take you out of it before the move actually happens.
Right. And to kind of build off of that, a lot of the retail traders, they got long here. We had like record long positionings in the dollar, probably in this area. As this stuff was forming here, we had record long positions in dollar, and then they drive it up, then they bring it back down. As this is bringing down, the long positions are starting to move to short positions. So they break it down, they get a bunch of liquidity from these long guys over here, and then now they're breaking it back up, and then sooner or later these shorters have their stops are going to initiate, right? Do you see what I'm saying? Because they're shorter
on the shorter time frame, right? So it all happens like, if you pin down on these levels, you'll see it happening on all time frames, kind of the same pattern of just watching these levels over and over.
Right. So it's like the retail traders are playing the exact opposite of the market makers, and they're just getting washed out every time. And sooner or later, I think this is gonna break on up, because there's not going to be any buyers, because everyone has just gotten kind of screwed over by the market makers.
Right. Yeah. That's another thing he talks about, which is range expansion and range contraction. So that's what happens when a range contracts. You get real tight price action, and everything's kind of consolidating in a range, and it's boring. People would go, oh, I'm out of this market. That's no fun. I don't want to mess with that. And it's right when all these people leave those markets, that's when the range starts expanding again. Boom, you're right, because you can really open the market up, because there's really not a lot of support or resistance around.
Exactly. So, I was just going to pull out a bit just to show you how pivotal that 92 area was. Let's look at the weekly. Like, we had so much price action happen around that area. Several hits, several crosses, just barely pulling back. So, it makes so much sense that it would just touch that 92 area and then pull back up. And I see it go into 100 over the next, it could be a few weeks, could be a few months. But I see us, a little, range, consolidate, and then eventually breaking. And, my target, as I've said several times, is 120 eventually.
Okay, good. Good. Well, that makes sense. We talked about the fact that market makers like to essentially frustrate people and piss people off. So they really could extend this range for longer than we're expecting. That's why it's good. It could be a couple weeks, months, maybe more like it, because they can really drag these things out, just watching stops on the upside and the downside. But once it goes, the longer that range goes, the bigger the move is going to be. So
I agree totally.
The longer they extend that range, the higher it's going to go. Or there's a saying by, I think it's Louise Yamada, who's an old Wall Street technical analyst, and she says, the longer the base, the higher in space.
Nice. Yeah, that makes so much sense. And it excuse me, it makes sense to me, because these market makers, they're basically, it's like they're positioning themselves for a big move, at the same time washing everybody else out, all the retail traders, so that they're the ones left standing making the most money at the end. The market makers are the ones making the most money at the end of it all. So you're right. I could see this ranging for a little while. And let me switch over to the Euro chart really quick, because that's sort of what's going on there.
All right. We're getting a little lag. It might be due to the chart stuff.
Okay.
So just FYI, I didn't get most of what you said just a second ago, but.
Sorry about that. Well,
no, it's okay.
Basically, I was just saying, dollar's going to range longer, and that's starting to play out in the Euro right now. So let me kind of switch here. So we're seeing some range right through here, and I think we could pull back up to the top of this range into this I've got a little short OTE right here, and with a fairly tight stop. And I think we could trace all the way down to this bottom support level. And I think that could be a pretty good trade for people. And, as we continue to range in this area, you could kind of just follow this range. You could short it to the bottom, and then, put your longs on as it comes through, and then take it back up. And I think it could, I do think it could range for quite a while, right in step with that dollar, because
I was going to say, this will range with the dollar. Exactly.
Because the Euro is over 50% of the weight of the DXY.
Right.
So that's a huge number. So it's going to look similarly. They're gonna have similar patterns playing out. So, but eventually, I do expect it to break both of these lines here and go down to the parity level. You know, €1 for $1. Tell me, can you see the chart?
Yeah, I got you now. Yeah, we're good.
Okay, good. So I do expect it eventually to break through this line here, and then on down to the €1 for $1 level, which presents a great opportunity to make some money. I think, you know, that's a huge percentage move if you could get short from up in here and take it all the way down. So, you know, it's up to you, you traders who are interested. You know, you might want to try to play that. It'd be a big move.
I completely agree. And that little OTE box in there is probably where you want to consider doing it.
Yeah, the red one, right?
Yeah. But going back to just putting ourselves in the mind of the market maker, you know, wouldn't it be? It's just perfect for the market maker to take price down below parity, freak everybody the F out, and then rip that thing back up to 110 again. Yeah. I mean that really is how a market maker is going to think. They know people are going to just freak out if the euro goes below parity psychologically. That's the best time to take advantage of them. Right,
because there will be tons of sellers, and they can just get, you know, really cheap liquidity right there and bring it right back.
Absolutely. So that's just a little FYI. You know, if we do start breaking down, I would definitely want to start taking stuff off around that parity level, because they're not just going to break it and it's going to go straight down. They're gonna you know, wick below it, fake people out, and then take it higher.
Right. Yeah, that's a really great point. So yeah, be careful for that. But that would be my long-term target, would be parity and then take it off. Just through the exact reasons that you just said. And the last couple of things, I know we're going pretty long here. I just wanted to touch on, just kind of check in European banks. So looking at Credit Suisse, looks like we're ranging some consolidation here. But if it breaks this line right here, there's not much below it. I don't think there's anything below it. I'm going to pull out to the weekly just to see. I think that's the lowest it's ever been. Yeah, so that's where we are right here. That's the low. We're in that low. If it drops through there, there's nothing there. I mean, it would just probably fall off a cliff. So, you know, I would be looking to, if you can get an entry up here, I would try to take it, you know. But if you see it break this bottom line here, and, you know, a pretty assertive move, not just like a wick, but, you know, really break through there, I feel like you could take a short and ride it all the way to zero without a problem.
There's a nasty M in that.
Oh yeah, that's I wasn't even paying attention to that. Yeah, it is.
That's gross right there. And you know, just real quick, looking at this chart is weird when you're used to looking at crypto charts, because they trade 24/7. I mean, these chalk charts are so gappy. You know, it just goes to show you how big of an effect closing and opening times have on what chartists can do.
Yeah, that's a good point. I hadn't thought of that either.
It's frustrating.
Yeah. You know, and Deutsche Bank looks about the same. We got a little tighter squeeze here, but to me, I think it's going to continue the bearish move downward. Right now we're consolidating. But if you see if it pulls back up to this trend line, you might could get short with a fairly tight stop above the trend line. But then if it breaks pretty clearly through this bottom trend, I'd ride it as far down as you can ride it. I'm going to pull out just to show you what's underneath there. Nothing.
It's already below the low. Yeah, it's like already tested the support or resistance turn support turn resistance, so it's then failed.
Yep, and that's where we are. We're kind of consolidating underneath, and I think it just keeps going.
I agree, especially technically speaking, but I will say that just for people to be a little bit careful out there due to the fact that these are major national European banks that really they could be bailed out, you know, and so you could wake up one morning and they just got a massive $1 billion liquidity injection and the stock has doubled, you know, so just be careful of that kind of thing happening. That you don't typically get that kind of risk with other stocks or assets, but these ones particularly are prone to this kind of event risk where the central banks and the governments come out and say, no, we're bailing them out, we're saving everybody no matter what, and then you're caught in a bad short position. So again, that's just a good reason to keep stops tight.
Tight stops, exactly. That's what I was saying. Yeah, make sure you got stops along the trend line, or else, you could get worked. But I know Europe has a much harder time with bailouts than the U.S. would, just based on their kind of government structure. Plus, Germany is so afraid to print any money for anyone that they will definitely fight very hard to keep that from happening. So, you got to weigh those risks. But
that's right. But the technicals say that's not gonna. The technicals are telling us that's not gonna happen. That these things are going lower. So.
Right. Exactly. So play that how you wish. Maybe some tight stops in there, but I do see it, breaking this bottom trend line and just keep going.
Yeah, makes perfect sense. Fundamentally and and technically, I think maybe starting to wrap up a little bit. I think the summer is gonna be really interesting for both macro, kind of global legacy markets and crypto markets. We know a lot about what's going on over the summer with crypto stuff, and we're all excited about it. We think there's rallies ahead, but there's a whole lot of uncertainty globally about a whole lot of things right now, and I don't know. I just have a feeling that something might happen this summer that could trigger some, at least a pullback in stocks and legacy assets. So just a little note for everybody out there.
Yeah, I totally agree, Adam. I'm really excited in a weird somber type way too, because when people suffer, when people get hurt, it's never a good thing, but it's also pretty exciting to just watch this stuff unfold and to watch, in a way, there's validation to be proven right, to be proven sort of about our gut feelings about the way things should be versus how they are. It is nice to experience that, despite the fact that people do suffer from it, which sucks really badly.
That's horrible. But I will say that people do learn more, from failing and when they're suffering than they do when everything is great.
Absolutely.
And are more willing to change. So I mean, we as crypto ambassadors, let's call it, just remain open to people who at some point in the future might go through a tough time due to all this stuff, and just be there to give them some suggestions. We're not salesmen for Bitcoin, but we know that it has the potential to help a lot of people. So, I think that'll be something that's important to keep in mind going forward as crypto peeps.
Beautifully said.
Awesome, man. Cool. Well, anything else you want to say before we wrap up here?
That's all I got, man. I feel like I've talked enough tonight.
No, this is great. We got some great trade ideas. The yuan trade really, and the European bank trades actually look very interesting. So we'll touch on those next time we talk. But until then, have a great evening and enjoy the upcoming weekend, and we'll talk to you next time.
Thanks, Adam. You too. Take care.
All right. Cheers, buddy.